Okay, so let me just start off by saying that I am in no way anti-vaccine. But what I do have a problem with is the fact that the Victorian government, among other world governments, seems to be walking a dangerous line along what should really be considered a form of fascism. We have a government in power mandating to remain employed that you have to participate in a business transaction with major corporate medical companies. That is pretty damn close to fascism, especially when you consider the fact that they are also segregating the population based on their willingness to participate in that business transaction. What we have is a majorly destructive and scary form of the meeting of governmental power and corporatist capitalism. I am all for the idea of a free market, but that is not what we have here. We have a disgusting entanglement of powers which leads to ultimately a form of corporate authoritism. How are people okay with this? How are people honestly going, oh, just shut up and take it, this, that, and everything else? Can't they see just how dangerous this situation we are in? We have ultimately gone off a tipping point into where your personal medical information can now be held against you and used against you for not wanting a vaccine that ultimately, I believe, will find that this COVID-19 vaccination will just end up like your regular flu shot. It'll be optional for all but certain, different sort of industries and that, but the majority of the times it'll be optional for the vast population. So how the fuck can they justify forcing it at this point? We've had an article put out by CNN saying that after, and I forget the exact amount of time, but the vaccination wanes to a sub 50% effective rate. Yet, we're following the science in forcing everyone to have the vaccine, or they can't make an income, make a living for themselves under the guise of public health. No, it's all a distraction. And it's all a distraction to distract from what they're really doing. The Australian government quite recently passed a law that allows them to masquerade as any individual person online. They are allowed to use your account without your knowledge or permission. They are allowed to monitor your messages. Essentially, it gives them the ability to control your online personality. They can masquerade as you without knowledge, court order, any of that being needed. They have fundamentally circumvented any notion of the right to privacy for the people. But that's not getting the recognition it deserves, because they have managed to divide the people so perfectly. You've got people on both sides calling each other sheep and this and that and everything else, and screaming at each other and telling each other to wake up, but the fact is, it doesn't matter. I don't believe the vaccine is some major, end of the world thing. I don't think they're trying to kill off half the population with it. But what they are doing is they are using the politics and the culture around it to divide the people even further and to keep them distracted from what's really going on. This is it's so incredible to think about when you consider the fact that so many people that were one time anti-big business, anti-capitalist, anti-pharmaceutical companies are now towing the line for these same pharmaceutical companies. The ABC also recently released a report which alleged that Pfizer could take Australian public property if the Australian government didn't buy a certain amount of the vaccine. That is a private corporation holding the government, the public, to ransom. How can you sit there and say that you are happy with this, or that everything is fine? This isn't the meme of the dog's house burning down and him sitting there saying this is fine. The house is already fucking burnt down. We're sitting in the ashes saying this is fine. We're on fire saying that everything's okay. How the fuck can people not realise just how scary of a time it is to be alive in that sense? They are dividing us so much, and people are going on with it, and I shouldn't be surprised. It's honestly not surprising that people who claim to be either side, people who claim to be awake or to know what's going on, have been so distracted by this bullshit, minuscule political differences we have between us. Yuppies, yobbos, all of them, we're all people. And at the end of the day, they are dividing us so they can then pass what they want. And it doesn't matter that you believe you're on the right side of history or that your opponent's on the wrong side of history. Because we are pawns in a political game. And it's an incredibly scary thought. But all hope isn't lost. We can do something about it. We have to break bread with those we disagree with. We have to be able to have a civil and respectable conversation with those who we might think are wrong. In no way can we continue to allow ourselves to be this divided and this at each other's throats. A house divided cannot stand, and right now the walls are pulling so far away from it that the roof is about to fall down. We are losing any form of social cohesion. They have put the cat amongst the pigeons, and people are panicking, and that's okay, that's understandable. This has been an incredibly scary time, regardless on what you believe or what side of the aisle you sit on. We have had one of the biggest outbreaks in over 100 years. A virus that, regardless of how deadly it is or isn't, has spread like wildfire and has been quite contagious. But they're using that backdrop to divide us more and to hide things that they're really doing. And it hurts me to see so many people at each other's throats over personal medical decisions. And I know what some people are going to say. They're going to say that, you know, getting the jab can help stop you spread it, and it helps ease the burden of the healthcare system. But there's so many things people could do in their individual life that could do the exact same thing, but we don't force people to do those things because that would be seen as immoral and wrong and authoritarian. So why are we okay with this? Why are we okay with having to sign in and prove that you're vaccinated everywhere? Why are we okay with that? And honestly, even if it does all go away in the next couple of years, this is an incredibly scary thought because they know they can do it to us. I don't want to sound all doom and gloom oriented, but we are living in a scary, unprecedented time. We have the merging of political power, corporate interests, and unimaginable amounts of technology all merging into one and being effectively used against the broader public. These sort of things couldn't have happened 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Hell, they couldn't have even have happened to this extent 20 years ago. The further technology advances, the further power it gives these special interest groups and these corporate elite and political elite to use against us, the people. I don't care whether you consider yourself a capitalist, a communist, whether you consider yourself right-wing, left-wing, pro-vax, anti-vax, whatever. But we are allowing all of these stupid little labels cast down upon us to divide us. And that is what is truly horrifying. Your neighbour is not your enemy. Your friend from high school that has a different political view, your old friend from high school that has a different political view, is not your enemy. You don't have to hate each other because you disagree on certain things. They want you to think that you do. They want you to believe that we are all so different and that we all have to be at each other's throats. Because that creates a sense of fear, and fear creates the longing for security, and it is much easier to offer somebody security with trade-offs to personal freedom or freedom of belief or something like that under the guise of protection when they are fearful. You don't have to be best friends with somebody you disagree with, but you can't hate them on that personal level. You can't go through and hate everyone that has a slight disagreement with you, because the more we as humans become divided, the less community we have, the more we're going to look to outside influences to give us that sense of belonging. The more divided and microcosmic we make our social groups, our friend groups, our community groups, the more and more divided we are going to become. The more minute things we focus on is going to be what tears us apart. We should not have people, preparing to go to war or preparing to fight or anything like that with people who ultimately, they both want what's best for other people and for themselves. They both want what's best for the community as a whole. They just have different ways of doing it. They have different beliefs on how that should be done. Those different beliefs should not be enough to create such hateful, vitriolic bullshit. It's disappointing and disgusting to see, just as a Victorian, as an Australian, to see this beautiful country become so divided. These amazing people on both sides, all sides, become so divided. Australia, we've always had this sort of roll up your sleeves and help out your neighbour approach. And yes, we've all got dark history. Every nation on the planet has dark history. But the fact is that we cannot allow ourselves to continue to be divided, or we are heading into a dark future. We should be able to love our neighbours. We should be able to respect them, their beliefs, even if we don't agree with them. Having a different belief from someone should not be the equivalent of declaring war on that person. When you carry so much hate and anger in your heart, it corrupts you to the point of where you can lose sight of what's important. What's important in this world isn't what BS political team you go for. Because ultimately, it's no more important than what football team you go for, what soccer team you go for, what sports team you follow, what bands you like. Because ultimately, they can only do truly horrific things if we allow them to divide us. We need to come back together as a community. We have been hit hard, and we are shaken, but we cannot allow that to continue to divide us. The only way we make it through these hard times is together. No man, woman, or anything in between is an island. No one can do this crazy journey called life on their own. We need to start calling for unity. We need to break bread and stretch arms across the divide. Not further it more with petty name-calling and hateful, vitriolic bullshit. Because at the end of the fucking day, all that matters is that you have left the world a better place for the people around you than it was when you came in. It is so easy to give into that hate and to hate people because they think slightly differently from you, but that doesn't achieve anything. There is no way to make good change through hate, fear, and anger. That just leads to further policies, further ideas that just breed it more and more. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy and a vicious cycle that we have been sucked into so much, constantly being bombarded by bullshit from different media corporations. The 24-hour news cycle has made outrage and disgust and hatred and anger profitable. So they continue to feed the bullshit that they know that we're going to click on, that we're going to look at, that we're going to hate, that we're going to feel angry over. So they continue to turn a profit. They are dividing the community up to make $1. We need to be stronger than that. The only way we can stop that continually hatred and division is to stand against it as one. Is to go, okay, we disagree on taxes, we disagree on this, we disagree on that, but that doesn't make you a bad person. That just means that we have a different view on how the world works, and I'm not going to buy into this bullshit and hate you because of it. I'm scared of the way our country is going. I'm scared of the way this state is going. I'm scared of the way the world is going. We are continually tearing each other apart and tearing away from each other, and any sense of community we can build will be destroyed within the next however long, because there'll be some minute difference magnified by a 24-hour news cycle, constantly being bombarded by bullshit that'll tear us apart at the seams, because people have slight disagreements, but they've got to be blown up to continually feed us this doom and gloom narrative of horse crap. At the end of the day, what does it matter if your political side won, if there's no community left? At the end of the day, what does it matter if you were right or wrong? If you don't know anyone, if you don't have anyone around you? And at the end of the day, what does anything anyone's work for matter if they don't have that community to share it with? We've gotten so hung up on capitalism versus communism, or vax versus anti-vax, or left versus right, or whatever, that we've forgotten the fundamental fact that we are all human. And in some way, deep down, I believe we all want the same thing, and that's we all want our community to be a better place, a safer place. We all want to have that communal connection with each other. It's not about trusting or not trusting the science. It's about trusting your neighbor, believing that they don't want to hurt you. And it is a scary thought, especially now we see so much doom and gloom, that it's so hard to trust people and to let them in, even if they've got the slightest disagreement with you, because you're made to believe that they are somehow evil or out to get you, but they're not. You cannot live your life guarded that everyone's going to try and hurt you, or you will not live a happy or fulfilling life. And a community cannot survive that way. We are on the edge of something truly scary, a true fracture among people of any and every race, creed, nationality, whatever, belief system, it doesn't matter. We are all people, we are all the same species, and we need to be able to look at that above everything else. You're not a left-wing person, you're not a right-wing person. The only thing that's important is that you are a person. You are important, regardless of your beliefs. And you should not have to be subject to hate or ridicule because of them, or to hate or violence because of them. But you also cannot do that to other people. The only way we make society work is when we break bread with those we disagree with. The only way to end a divide, to end a war, is to break bread and make peace with our enemies. Not to continue the hatred and the divide between us. Violence begets violence. Hatred begets hatred. The more we allow ourselves to be radicalized and polarized in this society, the more the society tears away at the fabric of itself. We are destroying something that we built. And at the end of the day, what is more important? That you scored some bullshit victory over somebody else with some belief that however many people in your little clique are going to cheer and holler about? Or is it more important that we have a stable community going forward, that we as all people can live in some sort of harmony? This isn't some hippy-dippy bullshit saying that peace can be eternal and that war or conflict never happens. But it is saying that we cannot turn on each other and we cannot turn on ourselves. There are always going to be people who disagree with certain things. But we have become so hyper-polarized that is tantamount to slapping someone in the face. Disagreeing with somebody on how economy should be run is tantamount to stabbing them or hitting them or slapping them in the face. That is horrifying. Maybe I'm the crazy one and maybe all this makes no sense, but surely all people should want to be reaching together, crossing the aisle, breaking bread and making peace with each other. It's all well and good having healthy debate about things that we believe, but you cannot continue to allow all of it to divide us and to separate us at the seams. Otherwise, why are we bothering? Why are we bothering trying to have a community? Why do we bother having nations if everyone's just going to be divided? Why don't we just all go fuck off and live out by ourselves? Form small little communities and say fuck anyone else that doesn't agree with us. Because we are naturally sociable creatures. And I believe that we are smart enough and that we have the ability to come together truly, honestly, and work together, but we need to do that. We can't keep allowing ourselves to be divided.